I'm Malcolm Gallagher, talking to my colleague Hugh Morgan-Williams about, it begins with a B, Brexit. Hugh, what's your present summary of where we are and what faces businesses in 2021?
Well, that's a very big question. Where we are, we don't know where we are. We thought we were going to have a decision on Sunday as to whether the talks would continue or not, and whether there was going to be a no-deal Brexit or not. And we still don't know. Both sides are saying we want to go the extra mile. Boris Johnson's been frustrated in his attempts to get direct talks with President Macron and Chancellor Angela Merkel. They're standing, fast behind the negotiating team of the EU, headed by Ursula von der Leyen. And that's the situation. So talks continue. Boris says without much hope of success. And I think there's also considerable gloom in Brussels as to whether a deal can be engineered, which both recognises Europe's desire to maintain the single market intact and Britain's desire to get the EU to respect their status as an independent nation. And so we really haven't moved very far.
No, right. Now, both of us are interested in business. There's lots of info on the government websites, but as one businessman said to me, I want to know what's not there. What do I not know that I need to know? What's your thoughts, Hugh?
Well, there's a lot of general information on the government websites about registering with HMRC, getting certain numbers you need to continue trading and all that kind of thing. But there's no information on what businesses need to do, both in terms of marketing their products, marketing their services, and what prices to charge for their products and services. For example, if I had today a Belgian customer ringing me up and saying, well, can you give me a quotation, a 6-month quotation from January to June? I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it in sterling. I wouldn't be able to do it in euros, because we don't know what tariffs would apply to the various goods he might be requesting delivery on. And in terms of delivery, well, most people want guaranteed delivery dates. In terms of the potential disruption at the border that we're going to see, how on earth can a businessman or a business give reliable delivery dates against that kind of disruption? It's very, very hard to know. And the great difficulty is, businesses are saying, let us know what the tariffs are. Well, if there's a deal, there won't be tariffs. But also the border disruption and everything else will lead to additional cost. How that will pan out, who knows? The supermarkets are saying that the disruption is going to lead to price rises, irrespective of whether there's a no deal or there's a deal, and whether there's tariffs or not. So we are going to be faced with a period of uncertainty, instability, and price instability as well. And I think for businesses who want certainty at all times, that is really, really hard.
Yeah, good point. Let's talk about businesses with boards. You're an experienced chair and CEO. Would you be considering at the moment changing the mix of the board to be more fit to compete in 2021 onwards? If so, where would you strengthen it?
I think it would depend whether I was a domestic business dealing purely with domestic customers, or whether I was an international business trading beyond the borders of the UK. In the latter case, then I would certainly be wanting to strengthen my board with both trading and linguistic skills to ensure that we're able to communicate properly with our customers, both our existing customers and potentially our future customers as well. And I think that's really important. I think also I would want to ensure that my legal team were up to speed, and most importantly of all, probably our procurement team was up to speed with the problems that might occur. So those are the 3 areas I think I'm wanting to strengthen the board: legal, in terms of marketing and knowledge of European markets, and languages. Those are the 3 areas I think I would want to strengthen my team.
Great advice. Boris says that no deal would be wonderful for the UK. Is he right, or just being uber confident?
Well, Boris and boosterism, how do I answer that? Well, he's been saying for the last couple of days, it's going to be great, whatever happens. Well, has he not seen his own Office of Business Responsibility report, which says that Brexit itself is going to cause a 4% decline in GDP, and a no-deal Brexit is going to cause a further 2% decline in GDP, which would lead to 300,000 job losses. Now that, to my mind, as a very simple man, irresponsible and reckless. Which business would go forward and say, okay, well, our business plan for the next year is going to involve a 6% decline in market share, a 6% decline in profitability, and a 6% decline in turnover. Now, all those are not necessarily the same things, but I don't think my shareholders would be very happy with me if I said, and this could be avoided.
Yes, and we're just introducing a new non-executive director called Madame Zaza, right? All this talk of an Australia-style deal seems to me to be misleading, as Australia's got no deal with the EU. Then another minister says Canada-style deal. Being cynical, it seems to me that UK is lacking in some decisive leadership. What's your thoughts?
Well, if one examines the Canada and the Australia deals to begin with, the Canada deal was something the EU was prepared to sanction because Canada is a long way away and doesn't pose a competitive threat to the EU in the same way that the UK does. An Australian deal isn't a deal at all because Australia deals with the EU on WTO terms. I suspect Australia deal sounds better than no deal, which is why the semantics have changed. But bearing that in mind, what does it mean for the UK? If we go for an Australian deal, that means no deal, trading on WTO terms, trading on tariffs, again, which we don't know what they'll be. We know some of what will be, but we don't know what the effects of that will be. We know that, for example, meat and dairy products face very high tariffs. Tesco has said, for example, that a pack of Lurpak butter will be 40% more expensive. And the chief executive of Arla has backed that up, the company that actually distributes Lurpak butter. We know that cars are going to be 10% more expensive. So all these things, we know something, but we don't know everything. Now, if we get a deal, it means those tariffs will disappear. Isn't that a good thing? And we're all told that, well, we need to protect our sovereignty. Now, sovereignty is something which is rather like a cloud. You can't grab it. It's almost a visceral feeling that you have that you're in control of your own destiny. And we have, over the years, sacrificed some elements of sovereignty for a better deal, both in terms of trade or security or whatever. And it goes back beyond the time of the common market in 1973, 1975. We've always done deals to improve our situation, which involved sometimes giving up a bit of sovereignty. So why have we suddenly focused on sovereignty? We want our country back is the slogan. We want our laws back. We want to be self-determined. We want to self-determine everything. But if you self-determine everything, it's bloody expensive. And we have to accept that if we are going to trade internationally, then we need to sacrifice some sovereignty. I mean, fishing, I think, is a different issue, and I'll come on to that later. But if we're dealing in a global economy, which we are, then inevitably we have to strike deals, some of which will involve giving up a bit of our sovereignty for the common good on both sides, not just us. So I suppose what I'm saying is that this government seems to be caught in a 19th century trap. We want to go back to how things used to be. Well, we don't have 300 ships in our navy to enforce that.
Yes.
We're not in a position where we can, send 50 battalions of troops to enforce our will. How are we going to be and trade independently when so many of these things require cooperation? Okay, we can be independent, but we also rely on the EU databases, for example, to provide criminal records checks and things like that. Those will be denied us if we go ahead with a no deal. So all aspects of our lives are going to change. It's not just business, it's all aspects of our lives. If we go abroad, we can only go for 90 days to Europe without a visa. And we then have to also make sure we carry an international driving license with us, all our car insurance documents and everything else if we're driving. There are going to be huge limitations on what we're used to doing.
We found a way around it in Northumberland. We're going for a self-declaration as an independent state, but that's another plan that's on the boil at the moment. But Boris's Palmerston gunboat diplomacy is just a little bit frightening, I think. Let's talk the S of SME, the small business, the bedrock of our economy, but in many sectors already hard hit. The government says new markets and exports means new opportunity, but surely it's not that easy to turn on the export tap. You've done it in the past for businesses, and I've coached businesses in selling global, and I know it's not that easy. Are we facing then what may be seen as a misleading opportunity?
Well, I don't think ministers have a clue as to how long it takes to build up markets. And if a market is taken away from you suddenly, through no fault of your own, then you've got to replace those sales with something else. If you're used to trading in Europe, and the government says, well, you can find the same opportunities in Asia or India or the States. Well, yes, you can, but setting up those relationships, being trusted, and developing those markets takes years. You can lose a market in 30 seconds, but it takes probably 10 to 15 years to grow a market. So what the government is telling us is basically, you're going to have to take a bath, and it's going to take you 12 to 13 years to build up a new market in a different territory. I don't think that's very sensible myself.
Spot on. Now, you've got a strong speciality and knowledge about finance and funding. Are you feeling that businesses are resilient enough in these areas to survive the triple whammy of Brexit, COVID, and possible recession?
If you'd asked me 18 months ago whether businesses could survive a no-deal Brexit, my answer would be yes, but it would be painful. But if you add on to that the global uncertainty caused by the pandemic, the impact of COVID on our businesses and their own financial resilience. And I was talking to a business the other day, used to trade about £20 million a year turnover. They're down to 10. So £10 million. Their business is halved, so they've had to let go quite a large number of staff. Yes, they've had some financial help from the government, but it's all loans that have to be paid back. And their financial resilience is far less than it was. And that is repeated up and down the land, that businesses are not as resilient as they once were. So to actually impose a no deal on top of all that will mean some businesses sadly going out of business. They won't be able to continue to offer the services and employment and job opportunities that they have hitherto been able to do.
Yes, yeah. And it's quite frightening what's ahead of us. I've been interviewing a lot of people in the city recently, investors and that, and they're talking about the thousands of jobs that are set to go in the City of London. Now, I'm personally, and this is a personal opinion, by the way, I'm personally critical of the quality of the business support available from government bodies and quangos. To me, it seems very mediocre and bland, play it safe, tick box stuff. It's certainly not energizing or in some cases backside kicking enough. What's your thoughts here? And as a CEO chairperson, what would you be asking of your team right now?
Those are very good questions, Malcolm. And I think part of the problem has been that governments have always played it safe. And I remember years ago, somebody from the Department of Trade, as it was then, came in to give advice on which export markets to develop. And the one they focused on immediately was Holland, because they speak English in Holland. Well, actually, that is not necessarily the best reason for developing a Dutch market. In fact, at that time, I was selling outdoor speakers for swimming pools as part of a range. Well, would you really think of targeting Holland as a place where people would be sitting by their swimming pools in the winter, wanting rock music playing by their swimming pools? I mean, you have to give credit where it's due, and some of these advisors that the government has got don't understand what businesses actually require, and they do play safe. In a sense, that's perfectly normal if you play safe, but the level of advice that the businesses are being given is so basic. You know, they're saying, well, have you got robust payment plans in effect? You know, have you got contracts with your suppliers? Well, you know, if you've got 1,000 suppliers, it's actually quite difficult to reorder all your contracts. If you've got 10,000 customers, again, it's a very, very difficult job to do. And I just don't think there is enough strength and depth in terms of the relationships that the government is trying to encourage us to adopt in terms of changing all our policies. Can't be done overnight. And the fact that we are going to the wire and beyond in these negotiations means that businesses won't know where they are. You know, on the 31st of December, somebody rings up, let's say in Paris, and says, well, can you send me these goods? Well, A, you're not sure whether you're going to get them through customs, because whether you've got the product codes that actually will get them through customs. Country of origin rules,
Yes.
they'll all change. You know, you won't be able to claim something as UK manufactured if it's got less than 50% British parts in it, and that you know, will trigger another set of tariffs if you're not careful. So all these things. So that poor person in Paris said, well, I'm not sure actually whether I can sell it to you or not. So what's that going to do for our competitive position as a nation and as responsible business owners trying to ensure they are growing their sales, growing their bottom line profits, and maintaining employment? All those things are really worthy objectives, but they're being made very difficult by the present situation.
Hugh Morgan-Williams and Malcolm Gallagher, the team behind the Brexit podcast, have been bringing you this special Brexit TV special. And we'll be back with some more when we find out what's happening. Thanks, Hugh.
Thank you.